Any extreme change is probably not sustainable. It's not going to last. So changing your eating habits, it is a really big shift. Like, I'm not going to downplay that. And so when people try and overhaul their whole lives, that's when it becomes overwhelming. And so I like to encourage really smart, small, realistic changes. Those small changes can truly add up to, a full lifestyle change over time.
Welcome to Athlete Country Club, the podcast built for parents, athletes, and competitors chasing the next level. I'm your host, Marcus McMarion, former Division I quarterback, now founder of Athlete Country Club. I started this show because, like many of you, I had to learn the recruiting process the hard way, traveling up and down the state, spending thousands trying to figure out what actually works. Each week, we break it down through two powerful segments. First, Coach Talk. This is where we sit down with college coaches, director of player personnel, recruiters to uncover exactly what they look for when offering scholarships. No fluff, just the truth from people making the decisions. Second, Athlete CEO. Here we go beyond the field, into habits, training, and mindset that build elite performance and long-term success. You'll hear from strength coaches, nutritionists, sports psychologists, and former athletes who've turned their grind into greatness in business, leadership, and life. Because being an athlete isn't just about playing the game, it's about mastering it and building your legacy beyond it. So whether you're a parent trying to navigate recruiting or an athlete ready to level up, you're in the right place. Welcome to Athlete Country Club, where we turn potential into performance and performance into purpose. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Athlete Country Club. I'm your host, Marcus McMarion. Super excited about our guest today. Rachael DeVaux Harlington is a registered dietitian, certified personal trainer, and performance enhancement specialist who has turned nutrition into both a science and kind of an art. As the founder of Rachel's Good Eats, she's built one of the most trusted voices in health and wellness by blending evidence-based nutrition with real-world sustainability. Before building her wellness empire, Rachael served as a collegiate dietitian at Oregon State University, which is where our paths kind of crossed. What began as helping athletes fuel for performance has since evolved into empowering millions to eat intentionally, live energetically, and create lasting balance. Today's conversation will deep dive into how nutrition can become the hidden competitive edge for athletes and families, unlocking the next level of greatness, not through restriction, but through understanding how food fuels confidence, recovery, and longevity. Rachael, welcome to Athlete Country Club.
Thanks so much for having me. It's like
10
years later.
A blast from the past. Had no idea this would happen.
Yeah, I know. I'm so excited to dive a little bit deeper into sports nutrition.
Yeah, no, definitely appreciate you taking some time. And I know away from your husband and your son, who you're always posting, who's awesome, I feel like I'm watching him grow as well through social media, kind of the power of that. But no, I mean, you definitely kind of taking it back to the beginning. I mean, you started your career working with athletes at Oregon State. Like, when did you first realize that food wasn't just about like calories and macros, but really about unlocking performance?
Yeah, I graduated Oregon State in 2015. And then right after that, I went straight into my 9-month dietetic internship, which broke up into clinical settings, food service settings, and community settings. And what I loved most about my dietetic internship was that I was able to tailor part of it into what I was most interested in. So I've always been interested in sports nutrition. I've been so passionate about athletics. I grew up playing sports, soccer and basketball, and I've always been active. And so I knew performance nutrition was where I eventually wanted to be. So I worked under Stacy Kazanchuk. If you remember, she was the head dietitian at Oregon State. I worked with her for about 2 months, and even though I knew nutrition mattered, obviously it wasn't until I was in that collegiate level environment watching D1 athletes train up close that the connection between food and performance that really clicked for me. And I was there during football camp, I believe, right when you guys started in the summer, I think, and then also with the women's soccer team. And so from the sidelines, it was intense watching. Like, I was there for some of the lifting sessions, the double days practice, the ice baths, like the whole thing. And so that's when I saw with Stacy working with some of the athletes that she was trying to focus on how to fix some of their underfueling tendencies. And so in terms of high performance athletes and food, it's so important, to consume enough food and enough fuel to be able to get through those workouts and training sessions. So, I mean, I would be at the practices, I attended those lifting sessions, and it was just next level. So the environment was tough. Your body is tapping into your glycogen reserves, and when you don't have enough, that's when your body starts breaking down muscle tissue. So that's why it's so important, and it was so just eye-opening to watch Stacy work with the athletes, obviously, and teach them how important food was. So I think obviously in that setting, when it was real life as opposed to just sitting in nutrition class, that's when it really clicked for me. Also, another side story, I just remember Stacy had set up in the cafeteria for the athletes the whole smoothie station. And so she had included all kinds of superfoods, chia seeds, hemp seeds, flax seeds, immune boosters like turmeric and black pepper. And so I just remember appreciating that the athletes had access to this type of nutrition. And so I'm curious what your thoughts were. Like, was that something that you appreciated in the moment, or maybe it took years later to realize that?
No, 100%. I think it's something you appreciate after the fact. Just the accessibility, the resources, and everything we had. Kind of like you're saying, I mean, just the amount of smoothies and being like, finishing your workout and you're just exhausted after. And Stacy and yourself are kind of saying, like, take your turmeric pills or take this pill. And you're like, oh, you like sit there and you have your cup and you drink it. But you realize you had people at your disposal that were just looking out for your best interest. So I think that made just a huge difference. And a little side note too, I don't know if I'm sure you remember, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but you got a repetition pretty fast there because you had a following at the time, and everyone's like, oh, hey, you're Rachel, you're kind of famous on social media, huh? And you're like, no, don't talk about that right now. Like, this is a work setting. Like, hey, let's talk about work. But
yeah,
no,
meanwhile, I'm posting all my snacks that I'm bringing to work throughout the whole day.
right, exactly. No, which was really cool to kind of see that and just kind of how everything transitioned through that. And I think it was interesting though to kind of see obviously the resources that athletes have, and we'll be able to kind of get into like all the details of everything, but kind of looking back, I mean, on that experience, I mean, like, what did that kind of teach you about, I mean, just the mindset of all the Division I athletes you were working with, and like how often there was a misunderstanding with nutrition?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that's what's funny about working with, I mean, not younger athletes, because you guys were collegiate level, but a lot of the time there is a lot of misunderstanding around nutrition, and athletes will outwork anyone, but a lot of them are just under fuel without even realizing it. And so they'll push harder instead of, eating smarter and taking time to learn about nutrition and why it's so important. So I always tell parents, like, if you can start a little earlier on with your kids and teaching them, that protein and carbohydrates are tools that you can use to better your performance, like, it's going to click a lot sooner for athletes, instead of, being Stacy or being me trying to, teach nutrition in a way that is something you guys are going to take in and utilize. So I can't speak for other collegiate level nutrition programs, but I did very much appreciate everything Stacy and Oregon State was doing back in 2015. It takes a lot of education and time to teach nutrition in a way that is easy to understand in a performance-driven setting. And so, yeah, if parents can learn that earlier on, if you have kids that are wanting to be in that, collegiate level athletic environment, then the earlier you can teach them about nutrition, the better.
Yeah, and I think almost an underappreciated kind of skill set that dietitians have. Oh, actually, let me rewind a little bit, because I want you to touch on the fact, because I don't know if you remember this. I remember it like it was yesterday. You schooled me on the fact. I remember one day, I think I called you a nutritionist a couple times, and you very kindly pulled me to the side and said, "I'm a dietitian," and I was like, "Oh, okay." So kind of talk about the difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist.
Yeah, I think, well, dietitians have to go through quite a bit of schooling. You take organic chemistry, you take anatomy, you take physiology. And so from that sense, I think anyone can become, a certified nutritionist online. So I think that's just the disconnect that a lot of people may have. I am so proud of all the schooling and classes I took to get to this level. So there is a difference between dietitian and nutritionist. Some dietitians go by nutritionist just because that's what, people are familiar with. So I feel like either work, but yeah, a registered dietitian, you're going to go through quite a bit of schooling and a very grueling dietetic internship and an exam to get that credential.
Yeah, no, well, that's awesome. And I, from that day forward, back in 2015, I believe it was, I've always asked people when we worked with, so when I got to Fresno State and I transferred, I remember we had a dietitian as well. I looked at her, I said, are you a dietitian or a nutritionist or like what kind of, I just started talking about her schooling and I kind of let her kind of talk about her degrees and different things. And I was like, you know what? I have a lot of respect for you. It's like I kind of set the tempo like, okay, I understand the difference. I'm a little bit more educated than most people. Yeah. So that was kind of cool. But obviously you've transitioned from like college athletics to building, really a global wellness brand. I think that's fair to say. And like, what made you, one, kind of take that leap, but then two, like what fears did you have to overcome in doing so?
Well, I first made my Rachel's Good Eats Instagram account when I was a senior in college at Oregon State in 2015. So it's been 10 years to the day, which is crazy. It wasn't a business idea. It was just something that made me happy. I loved cooking and not necessarily cooking even. It would just be simple like snacks and meals that I threw together in my tiny apartment. And then what I would fuel myself, through my full course load and then onto my 10 to 12 hour day interning for Stacy. So it would just be pictures I was posting without any idea that it would grow into what it is today. I was very consistent. I didn't miss one single day of posting for 2 whole years. And so I posted 1 to 4 times a day. There's no bar back then. So it was, the quality of photos was nothing like I feel like what it is today. But I think that was also why people, could relate to it because it was just real life, real food on the go. And so once I passed my dietitian exam, I opened a small private practice with about a dozen clients. And at the same time, my Instagram, I think, had grown to about 100,000 followers by then. And it just became really clear that I could reach so many more people online than I could ever do one-on-one. And so I feel like the impact that I could have with people online was just so much bigger. And not only that, I genuinely loved creating content, sharing recipes and educating and building an online community. So when it became time to choose kind of which lane I wanted to do, with staying in a traditional RD role or going full online, I honestly wasn't that conflicted. And I feel really grateful that the timing lined up at the beginning of my career. I know obviously if I was in working in clinical for 10 years, it would be a much harder transition to go online. But I was confident it would work and I was all in, continuing to make time to post and make recipes, and the growth was already happening. So in my mind, there wasn't really another option. I just believed in what I was doing and I could already feel the impact that I was having on people with their messages and comments. And it felt really good that I could reach, thousands more people than I could just a dozen people one-on-one.
Yeah, no, the reach is unreal to think of social media. You just look at kind of like the professional dashboard that they have set up. And even if people who don't have huge followings, a lot of times they're reaching 10, 20, 30, 50,000 people over a month span. So it's like, then you start getting into actually having a following. You're talking, a couple 100,000, millions, tens of millions, 30, 50, 60 million people over a month span, which is like you're saying, you can only do so many conferences and so many one-on-one calls and so many Zoom calls to reach people. So social media is obviously giving you that platform. But specifically for like the parents who are listening who have kids that are maybe chasing scholarships or competing year round, where do you see the biggest nutritional mistakes happening?
I mean, I'm just going to repeat myself again. I think kids are unintentionally under eating and under fueling. So a lot of the times I see kids just skipping breakfast, which is huge. That's going to set you up for, the whole day. And so a lot of the times they're grabbing something that's either small, they're skipping it, or they're grabbing something that's high in sugar. And so by the time, they get to school, they get to practice, they're just running on fumes. And so I would say that parents could really hone in on breakfast and making protein and carbohydrates a big part of breakfast, because I think those are the two big game changers. Getting a balanced recovery within an hour or two after training also. So those alone can completely shift your energy, your mood, your performance, your recovery. And it doesn't really have to be complicated. Like a few examples of nutrient dense breakfast could be an egg and avocado breakfast sandwich. So you could do English muffin, avocado, 2 eggs, a slice of cheese, a slice of turkey. That's going to get you protein. That's going to keep you full for hours. Another option would be, I love smoothies. I have them every day. And so you could do protein smoothie. You could do milk, add in a little bit of avocado. You can't taste it. It's going to give you healthy fats and fiber. Chia seeds, you could do protein powder or unflavored Greek yogurt. I always say unflavored with everything because that's, going to remove all the added sugars that are in so many of our everyday foods. So always get unflavored, and then you can add your own flavors with actual fresh fruit. I like keeping low sugar diets or promoting low sugar. So don't put too much fruit in your smoothies. It's going to help keep your blood sugar stable. So I like to do half a cup of fruit or less. And then you can add some spinach. So that's going to be a really filling smoothie. You could also do upgraded oatmeal. You could stir in an egg. I know that probably sounds weird, but it actually makes the oatmeal, if you're cooking on the stovetop, it's really easy. It makes it really fluffy. Really good. You could stir in some Greek yogurt at the end. You could do a little bit of protein powder, and then you can add some fresh berries, nut butter. That's gonna make packaged oatmeal just way better. Another thing I see is over-reliance on sports drinks and supplements. So I always want athletes to know that real food comes first over everything. Of course, you can supplement, with vitamins and different supplements and protein powders. But I would always say that whole food comes first. That's where you want to get, the bulk of your nutrients and vitamins and minerals. With sports drinks specifically, again, that's where you're going to get tons of sugar, and you don't need all that sugar unless you're sweating a ton through really intense practices and losing a lot of sweat. So you do still need electrolytes, sodium, potassium, and magnesium, because those minerals help maintain hydration, muscle function, and just overall performance. So try to cut out the added sugar and hydration drinks. And then something that's really easy, if you're just in a pinch, you could just have plain water and add some lemon juice, some sea salt, and a little bit of honey. And that's going to give you a really clean hydration drink.
Yeah, no, and that's really interesting too, because I remember getting to college and they're giving you Gatorade, but it's the most watered down Gatorade that you could possibly drink. It's really not even Gatorade, so it's worse as in high school. I was like, man, we're pounding those things left and right. Like, oh, I'm an athlete, I'm drinking Gatorade, this and that. And you kind of start to get to the nutritional side of things like, man, this has a ton of sugar. Like, this is probably good when you're in a pinch and you don't want to cramp and you're on the bottom spectrum of trying to hydrate quickly. It could give you a quick fix. But if you're just casually sipping Gatorade, probably not the best thing. And there's definitely a lot better options out there. But kind of on a lighter note, I feel like a common word you keep using is just under fueling. And I feel like when I got to Oregon State, I was probably, 175 pounds soaking wet. And I was obviously trying to gain weight when I got to Oregon State. And I felt like when I got there, like, okay, now I got Stacy and Rachel's here and they're going to help me and they're going to give me some magic pill to kind of gain weight. And I'm just going to be 215-pound big muscle guy. And I think I was kind of blown away when I got there. I was like, hey, how do we gain weight? And they're like, eat food. And I'm like, huh? Like, they're like, yeah, eat more food. And I think that was kind of just a whole mindset perspective, like switch for me, to where it's like a lot of the things that you guys take very complicated, scientific, evidence-based things and you simplify it very simple, like you just did with the oatmeal and put an egg in it and little things. But it's like, talk about that to where athletes that are, oh, I can't gain weight because my metabolism's fast. I know that was my excuse and my reasoning when I got to college. I was like, oh, well, I just can't gain weight. Like, my metabolism's fast. I do a lot of things. But when you got there, I remember Stacy saying, you have to eat this many vegetables. And I was like, this is inhumane, Stacy. Nobody could eat a plate of broccoli for every meal. But kind of talk about some of those like eye-opening experience that freshmen might get when they're coming into college and have those resources.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think their mind is just not on nutrition. That's just going over their head. That's not something they're focused on. They're focused on, how am I going to be the best at practice? How am I going to come out of the gates during this game and just, perform and be the best? So food is not really top of mind, but yeah, you do need to eat a lot of calories, especially if you're going to be doing those 2-a-days. You're lifting, you're, you're almost killing yourselves at these practices that I was watching. You need to recover and you want to prevent injuries, and eating enough calories is going to help you do that. So I think it's not fancy, it's just consistency and learning to not have 4-hour gaps during the day that you're not eating. Like, you need to try and be more consistent. Maybe that's a goal where every 2 to 3 hours you are having a meal, if you're an athlete and you're in the middle of your training, and it's really important that you are performing at your best. Like, you do want to be taking in tons of nutrient dense meals. I really love to focus on protein because that is going to keep you full. It's going to help with your recovery. It's going to help with maintaining muscle, building muscle. So protein, and then carbs are your best friend. They're your number one fuel source. So you need a lot of them. And yes, Stacey was right. You need to eat veggies, but that's going to give you fiber. That's going to give you your micronutrients, your vitamins, your minerals. And so really it's just building a balanced plate in addition to, healthy fats. If you don't want to think about it, an easy way to add healthy fats to your meal is just drizzling extra virgin olive oil over the top of whatever you're eating, or just adding avocado to your meals. Or if it's something that's more sweet or breakfast, you can do nut butter, almond butters, peanut butters, no jiffy, no added sugar. There's so many bad ingredients in that. So yeah, again, just watch your added sugar. Try to choose whole foods as much as possible. I also think hydration is, like what we talked about, like really big. Drinking enough water throughout the day is going to help, making sure you have electrolytes in that.
No, 100%. And I think it's really important for the listeners and audience, whether you're an athlete, a parent, a coach that's kind of listening to this, like when you get to Oregon State or you get to your Division I university that you're at, or any college that you're playing at, the collegiate level in general, how important and systemized it is. I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but Stacy, you were either a green, a yellow, or a red. And you would get a card as soon as you walked into the cafeteria. And if you were a green, you were going to sit there for probably an hour trying to eat the amount of food that you had to eat to gain weight. If you're a yellow, you were a maintain. If you're a red, you were losing. So all the big linemen were upset. Yeah.
I barely remember that now that you say that.
Yeah, all the linemen would always be upset because they'd be like, oh, I could only eat 1.5 plates today and not 4 plates. I'm like, dude, you're fine. I promise you, you'll be okay. Yeah, you'll be okay. But no, I think it's really important too. It's just that you said you're in the mind frame when you're coming from high school, you're like, man, I just have to lift and throw, or do my skill development. And then when you get to college, you realize it's a lot more about how can I be the most efficient with my time. And then I think for me, at least in my experience, the 3 most important things are kind of lifting and skill development, number 1. Number 2 is your recovery is super important in college, to where you're you're being proactive, so you're not reactive. So you're not going into the training room when you're hurt. You're going before you get hurt. So that's really important. Then the third final thing I'd say is nutrition. So those are kind of how your mindset, I think, shifts once you're kind of around elite performers as well. You're trying to find different avenues that you could get the leg up on athletes. And like if you could simplify, I mean, performance nutrition into maybe 3 habits that actually move the needle for athletes, I mean, what would they be?
Eat enough food. I mean, even with myself, I was training so hard in the gym and I obviously wanted to see results. And if you're not consuming enough calories, especially protein, it's going to be really hard to see that change. So once you make that change with more carbs and protein, for me, even, I noticed a huge difference. And so I grew more muscle mass. I looked more toned and I felt more energized during my workouts, which is, I feel like, the most important part because when you have that energy, you can perform at the top of your game. Number 2, prioritize protein. I feel like most of us are just under eating protein every day. Number 3, never train on an empty tank. So that is when, you're going to start breaking down muscle tissue. You're going to encourage injury. And so we don't want to do that. That's the last thing we want to do. Your body is relying on the foods you consume to keep your performance functioning at its highest level. So those are my top 3.
Yeah, no, and it's funny. I kind of parked the conversation really fast. Is I remember having conversations like after talking with people like yourself and Stacy at being in college, people would ask me for like advice. How do you lose weight? How do you gain weight? Blah, 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 blah. And I remember specifically talking to like my mother-in-law and my mom. And I was like, you guys would be absolutely blown away if you hired a dietitian or nutritionist, how much food they needed you guys to eat. So I won't say who, but there's someone in my family, they could go all day. They'll eat a singular egg and be fine all day. And I'm like, you have no idea how much food a dietitian or nutritionist would require you to eat to lose weight. And I feel like that's such a counterproductive thought. And why do you feel like that messaging's out in the world that if I want to lose weight, I have to restrict and eat absolutely nothing all day?
So many people believe that, which is one of the reasons why I take my job so seriously, because it is such a real thing that people are under eating and under consuming. I just want people to look at food in terms of fuel. How is this going to benefit my body going in? I want people to get as many micronutrients and vitamins and minerals as they can. And I want people to focus on, protein. I think the main issue is that people look at nutrition and it's so confusing, obviously. The media has made it, obviously so much science, and every week or month there's a different trend going on. So I think when you just dial it back down to the basics and you help people eat real food and maybe just focusing on portion sizes. I'm not even a big proponent for macro counting or calorie counting. I just want you to, eat proper portions. So I think just helping people realize that food is fuel.
Yeah, no, having that relationship with food is definitely an important one. And I mean, for you, I mean, I wish I could have listened to someone like yourself with the expertise and knowledge you have tell me this back in high school. But like, what does fueling like an athlete like actually look like in a daily life, especially when, I mean, you're kind of balancing school, training, and recovery, and more specifically towards like a high school, junior high, where they're at school from 8 to 3 o'clock. Like, how do you actually recover the right way and fuel your body?
Well, it's consistency. It's not going huge gaps during the day without eating. It's even having reminders on your phone, like telling you if you are training, if you're during your season, you do want to be consuming, consistent calories throughout the day, because training is one, but then recovery is also huge. You want to have enough, nutrients and calories in the tank that you want to be able to recover and then perform the next day. So I think it's just taking the time to learn just basic nutrition. And so again, if parents can hear this now and start early, obviously changing a family's nutrition habits is a big shift. And so I would just say start slow and start with smaller habits and wait for those to stick before you add anything else to your plate.
Yeah, no, and I think it's very important. Obviously, it's on the athlete. Like, hey, this is your career. This is your kind of journey for them to kind of embrace it. But the parents, I mean, the more they could embrace it as well and kind of give them a jump start on it. I don't know. Have you ever heard J.J. Watt kind of talk about how he used to eat growing up in high school with his brother?
No.
So, so he said it was like a feast, like a Thanksgiving feast every single morning, that the mom would make this big old pancakes and eggs and like a huge thing because they knew they were going to have to be loaded. And they would send them off with like 3 or 4 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that they had to eat at like 11 o'clock every single day, or like 10 o'clock right before. So like 2 to 3 hours after their 7 o'clock breakfast, they would eat around 10 o'clock. Then they eat a big lunch, and then they would eat again right after practice immediately, and then they would have dinner. Obviously, there is a financial strain to an extent to how much you could feed someone, but I mean, peanut butter or jelly is fairly inexpensive. Like there's cost affordable things that you could do about being intentional, but obviously those parents knew it's like, hey, the only way for you to put on weight is to consume calories, especially when you're running around with your head cut off as an athlete, going from lifting to practice to running to this to that to being able to kind of do all that stuff. So, I mean, it's just finding that competitive edge. I mean, it's kind of just like beyond just your sport, but kind of taking that nutrition, kind of like we've talked about this whole time. But I mean, like in your opinion, I mean, when you're working with the athletes, we've kind of talked about a healthy relationship, but when you work with athletes, like how do you help them build that healthy relationship with food instead of seeing as something that you're restricting from them?
I mean, yeah, I think I start out wanting them to build a positive relationship, obviously, for it, thinking about food in terms of fuel and how is this going to benefit my body? Because when you start with that, I feel like when you tell athletes or anyone in general about calories, they immediately think about restricting, which is the opposite of what you want to do when you are at that performance level. You want to be eating, again, as many calories as you can when you are in that training mode and training mindset. So I think it's just learning the basics. Again, like I feel like I'm repeating myself, but learning how to just build these nutritionally dense plates at each meal.
Yeah, no, I know you kind of gave a really good example of the breakfast of something a parent could do with the eggs, the avocado, kind of wrapping it and kind of getting everything they need in there. What's like one example of a lunch or a dinner that they could be just like a staple meal that they're cooking every single week for their athlete?
That's a good, I mean, especially if you're in college, I feel like budget is a huge factor. So you don't need fancy ingredients. Eggs or canned tuna or salmon, chicken thighs, Greek yogurt, beans, rice, potatoes, frozen veggies. Like those are something that you should be, keeping on hand and having ready in your kitchen, because in terms of meal prepping, you don't have to go overboard. You can just keep it simple and just cook in batches so you have extra food on hand. So that's roasting a tray of potatoes or grilling, a bunch of chicken thighs that you can just keep in your fridge. That'll get you 3 to 4 meals. I know that college schedules are obviously chaotic, especially when you add in practices and games. So having something in the fridge or your pantry that's ready to eat is super helpful. Then you're not just, grabbing something that's less nutrient dense on the go. I also think that utilizing frozen produce is just as nutritious as fresh. It also lasts longer, and just keeping it in your freezer is obviously very convenient. Same with buying in bulk with oats and nut butters and almond butters and eggs. Those staples go a long way. And then if you're in the mess hall or the cafeteria, if you're buying food, I would really encourage thinking about what's going to be on your plate, how long is that meal going to last you feeling full. And so again, like start with your protein. You want that to be the bulk of your meal, and then those complex carbs like sweet potatoes or rice, veggies, those are going to add in your fiber that's going to keep you full for a lot longer. And then my little tip of adding healthy fats over the top, even if you're eating salad or roasted veggies or just protein, drizzle extra virgin olive oil over the top. And then, of course, like give yourself some grace. You're in college, or even if you're in high school, you're busy, you're running from classes. Do the best you can with what you have. I think that just goes for anyone too. If 80% of your food choices are, healthy and helping you work towards your goals, you're in an amazing place. And then the goal isn't perfection. It's just trying to be consistent and then work with what you have.
Yeah, we love an 80-20 Pareto principle. That's so we stay very strict to the 80% so that we can enjoy that 20% of food that we do have. But no, it's really interesting too. I feel like just you've kind of built, just Rachael Good Eats into more than a brand. It's kind of become like a lifestyle for you. And I know that's all your cookbooks and different things you have. My wife would eat that up, and I'm probably going to have to buy her one of those because that's something where we differ. I'm like, hey, I could eat chicken and rice every single day and I'll be fine. Like, I'll be the happiest person in the world. Chicken and rice, throw a little broccoli in it. Like, oh, you threw teriyaki sauce on it instead of spicy mayo this time. This is amazing. But she's like, oh, well, we had that last week. I can't make that this week. So she would love your cookbook. But kind of on that note, how did that, evolve from your early days as a dietitian to what it is now?
Well, I started with just how I was fueling myself on a daily basis from class to class. Like when I was posting my food, it was just really easy things that I would, take time to make look nice. That was just, I don't know. I just had fun doing it. So the goal wasn't to create a business or a brand. I would just share tips and tricks I used to eat healthy myself, and even on my busiest of days. I wasn't trying to teach nutrition, and I think I was just genuinely, living my life and sharing what I was eating. So I think that's what people connected with the most. And yeah, because it felt really doable and real. So I've always believed you can live a healthy lifestyle without compromising flavor or your favorite things. I'm also just big on swapping for healthier ingredients, cooking from home as much as you can so you know what's going in your food, and then keeping movement a consistent part of your day. And so the more I shared that approach, the more I think it just naturally turned into a lifestyle people wanted to follow. And then the fact that nutrition and fitness have always been intertwined for me, I just love helping people understand that when you fuel and move your body, you just feel more empowered in your everyday choices and you feel stronger and more confident, which, I don't know, that's the goal for me and in what I promote. So it's just been a journey. I've gone through, so many different opportunities through what I have built on just, Instagram. It's turned into my website and my blog where I share tons of free, healthy recipes and workouts. And I've launched my fitness guides and nutrition programs. And then that, turned into writing a cookbook, Rachael's Good Eats. And then 2 years later, I have another one coming out in March of 2026 called the High Protein Plate. So it's 100 healthy, high protein recipes for every meal of the day, which I'm excited about.
Yeah. And when does those pre-orders come out so everyone could start pre-ordering that?
You can pre-order now on
There we go.
Mostly every site, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, which is so exciting. Yeah, March 3rd is when it comes out.
That's awesome. Yeah. So make sure you guys check that out. And I think the cookbook's awesome because, like you said, it's a lot of the times you're not sacrificing food, you're just making it in a healthier way. And I think a lot of families struggle with kind of the all or nothing mentality. Like, I'm going to eat a chicken salad every single day with no dressing on it, when they're going from eating XYZ hamburger place or fast food, this or that. And then it's an all or nothing, whether they're on a diet or they're not on a diet. How do you kind of teach sustainability and balance while still chasing their nutritional and their fitness goals?
Well, I always say that any extreme change is probably not sustainable. It's not going to last. So changing your eating habits, like I was saying, as a family, it is a really big shift. Like, I'm not going to downplay that. And so when people try and overhaul their whole lives, that's when it becomes overwhelming. And that's when people just can't stick to every single habit they're wanting to change. And so I like to encourage really smart, small, realistic changes and habits that you are going to continue wanting to follow, and they're not just going to drop off because you're just too overwhelmed. So sticking with, just incorporate one healthy habit. Like, let's say, for example, you want to start drinking 100 ounces of water a day. Like, try that for 2-3 weeks, a month. So once you have that down and you're, feeling good about it, and you consistently drink 100 ounces of water every day, add on another healthy habit. So it's just making those small changes, and they can truly add up to, a full lifestyle change over time. I feel like I've gone through my own journey over these last 10 years, finding what works for me. So that's what's going to set people up for success the most. It's never all or nothing. That's just going to derail people, I feel like, because it's too much at once. So I feel like once kids and parents realize that healthy eating isn't about restriction, it's about fueling their body so that they can feel strong and energized and able to perform better, it just becomes so much more motivating. And then the better you feel, the more you want to keep eating that way. So it's positive changes upward.
Yeah. And if you're kind of a little off tangent a little bit, but if you were in front of like a high school athlete or high school parent or high school team right now, I guess you could say football team, any kind of team, basketball, what would be your advice on like creating a plate, like some of those, like a few basic knowledge things that they could start implementing that would help them right away?
Focusing on protein. It has such a big effect on your energy, your mood, your hormone production, your recovery, I think I already said your energy levels, but how long you can stay full, until your next meal. I wasn't eating enough protein, and I just found myself always reaching for another bar or, a snack that's not really going to keep me full for that long because I was just hungry throughout the day. And once I started incorporating protein as my main in every single meal, including breakfast, because that sets you up for the whole day, that's when I really noticed a change, and I had more energy during the day, during my workouts. I didn't get that afternoon crash. So focusing on protein as your main part of your plate. Then you want to add in those complex carbs. Those are gonna stabilize your blood sugar and more than simple carbs. And so those are, sweet potatoes, rice, veggies have complex carbs, and then adding in healthy fats. It could be anything. Salad dressings you should probably make from home because they're really easy. You can use extra virgin olive oil, lemon juice, rice wine, vinegar, salt and pepper, oregano. That's a really easy salad dressing that you can make from home that has no extra additives that I feel like, every store-bought salad dressing has. Avocado is a really good one. You could add nuts and seeds over the top. If you're making a smoothie, 3 tablespoons of hemp seeds is 10 grams of protein. So that's something, you could add into your smoothies, you can add into your oatmeal. That's going to give you extra protein and omega-3s, which is great. And veggies. So that's really going to complete a plate, I feel like, for your mains. And then, I've already mentioned building a smoothie, which is a great breakfast or a great snack or, post-workout recovery.
Yeah, and I'd be wrong not to ask this question to nutrition because I'm sure you've heard this a million times, and I'm sure you'd like to debunk it on a podcast. Is someone who says, "I would eat healthy, but eating healthy is so expensive."
Well, I mentioned even my tips for a college level athlete. If you have your own kitchen, you're cooking from home, those staple items you can buy in bulk. The eggs, the rice, the potatoes, the chicken thighs, just having bulk protein, that's really going to help you out. And then making things in batches you don't have to think about it. If it's overwhelming for you, I'm not a big meal prepper, but I do like to have ready to eat foods in our fridge that you can just throw into a bowl and heat up and it's ready and it's a balanced meal. So, if you make a bunch of chicken or if you make a bunch of ground beef with taco seasoning, that is my favorite thing to just heat up for lunch or even for dinner. And then making a veggie takes 10 minutes in a skillet or, in an oven is just roasting zucchini or sauteing broccolini in some ghee. It's going to give it that buttery flavor with some sea salt. Like that's an easy addition for a veggie side. And then having like just a bulk, pot of rice made at the beginning of the week. That's really easy to heat up as well. So I think just trying to be in the kitchen a little bit more, even if you're not used to it, like focus on really easy things that you can prepare or get a cookbook that you can follow. Try one new recipe a week, or if that's too overwhelming, just try one new recipe a month and make it fun. Like turn on music, light a candle. Like cooking can actually be enjoyable. It doesn't have to be super overwhelming. It doesn't have to take a ton of ingredients. Find something that is very simple to make and something that you want to make. It doesn't have to be like what we were saying, plain chicken breast and broccoli. Like there's so many healthier alternatives for the foods we grew up eating. Like one of my favorites is chicken parm. It's in my first cookbook. Like I love eating that, but there is, a healthier way to eat it using better for you ingredients. So you can always substitute with better ingredients at home.
Yeah, well, you've definitely inspired me to, right after this, I'm going to buy your cookbook because I'm a decent cook, but I'm really good at following directions. So
Yeah.
that there's people who fall into that category, and that would be myself. Hey, I'm not just my mom and my wife are very much, I said, how much did you put in there? Like, oh, I don't know. I just kind of eyeballed it. I'm like, I wasn't blessed with that little eyeball, just like, I don't know. I'm like, no, you need to tell me 3 teaspoons of this or that. So
So then you'd
I'm
be
going to
a perfect candidate for a cookbook.
exactly. I'm your target audience for sure. But kind of on that, I mean, like, where can people, if like, I have a couple more questions and we'll wrap up, but like, where can people follow you on social media? Where can they pre-order the book and just kind of give some insights on where they could get some more of this information?
Yeah, my Instagram handle is Rachel's Good Eats. It's Rachael. And then my blog is the same, rachelsgoodeats.com. And I just kept it simple for my first cookbook. It's Rachel's Good Eats. And then my second cookbook, you can pre-order. It's called The High Protein Plate. And so that's 100 new recipes, including dessert. So you're going to get some good ones. For Thanksgiving, I just made the chocolate coconut caramel tart with 16 grams of protein per serving. So that was really good. I see you're
Yeah,
excited
that's
about
where I wish like where like someone like you was in my family because you're like, dude, I'm gonna eat so much of this, but I know it's not that bad for me. It's actually
it. Yeah,
healthy. So,
it's
it's pro
benefiting
and
you.
con. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
benefiting me, pros and cons to it. You're like, hey, well, you could slow down a little bit, but no, kind of my final questions. Obviously, you've built, I mean, it's crazy to see we were talking a little bit off camera. It's gone from like 10 years ago, kind of a gap, and we kind of touch base here on their own social media, but not a ton, just to kind of see where you've gone from dietitian to where your story's at now and kind of just the legacy you're kind of building for yourself and your family. And like for you, I mean, from 2015 dietitian Rachel to now, what does health mean to you now compared to when you first started?
Well, when I first started, I would probably say that I was more rigid in my, well, especially my workouts. I was working out 6 to 7 times a day, or times a week, without much rest or recovery at all. And with food, I don't know how strict I was, but certain tendencies, like I wouldn't salt my foods just because I was in that mindset even back then of, okay, I need to have it more plain. I don't want to have too much sodium. And so that's just so far, opposite of what I do now. And so I was eating lots of lean meats. I was trying to check every clean eating box. And at the same time, or at that time, I genuinely believed that's what health looked like. And so over the past 10 to 15 years, I've obviously gone through my own health journey, and I think everyone does. And so it's just a bunch of trial and error, figuring out what really works for you and what makes you feel your absolute best, and how you feel energized throughout the day. And so now I have such a relaxed and flexible way of eating and moving because I found what works for me. I prioritize rest because that's where the real results happen. And once I started, which is wild, I mean, some people, I guess, fall into that category of, you're training so hard, you want to see all these results, but really the recovery is the most important part. And that's when you'll see the most results, because your body needs time to rest and recover in order to build more lean muscle. So with nutrition, I just keep it super simple now. I have a very low added sugar diet. I eat high protein at every meal, and everything is pretty balanced. So that's feel like the formula that keeps me feeling my best. It gives me steady energy. It keeps my mood and my hormones balanced. And it took years for me to figure that out, even as a dietitian. So I just want people to realize, like, yeah, you probably are going to have to go through your own journey. It's going to look different for everyone. But to me now, health is when you reach the point of being happy and you're not stressing about, every little thing that's going in your body and doing everything perfectly. You're not overly rigid with your habits. So you're eating as much, whole foods as you can. You're getting movement in, even if it's just walks outside, and you're just living your life. And so everyone has their own, journey to find what works for them.
Yeah, no, and I think it's so important. I mean, obviously you're kind of raising your family up now with your husband and your son. And I mean, like, how do you personally, just define success today? I mean, like, both personally, and professionally.
Oh, that's a good question. When I was younger, success was I just hustling every day, and including the weekends, and just working 24/7, because when you own your own business, it's no one's going to move the needle besides you. And so it was truly working 24/7. And I'm so grateful for that time, because it's allowed me, all these opportunities. And I was able to grow my platform to where it is today by working so hard and helping as many people as I have along the way. And so I'm really proud of that season, because it's kind of built the foundation for everything I'm doing now. But today, I would say that success feels a lot more rounded out. Personally, it's just having the energy and the mental capacity to take on, both work and raising a family. And so being present with my family as well is really important to me. And so it's being able to take care of myself first. And that's going to allow me to, take care of everyone else around me. So that's feeding myself well and making sure I have enough sleep every night, and being able to work out most days of the week. And that makes me feel my best. And professionally, I feel like success is just doing work that feels really meaningful and helping people feel confident in their bodies and making healthier choices, and understanding that nutrition can actually, play a pivotal role in just your overall health and your lifestyle. And so the messages I get almost every day, and the emails I get, is, it's people telling me that my recipes and my workouts have changed their lives. And so that's the true meaning of success professionally to me. And so it's not lost on me how grateful I am to be in this position. And that feedback, what I get from people, is a huge part in what inspires me to keep, creating and making recipes and workouts. And so knowing I'm able to help change people's lives, like, that's makes me feel, the most success.
Yeah, no, and I think it's interesting too. I think one of the most selfless things you could do is be a little selfish and kind of putting yourself first, because obviously you're a mom, you're a wife, and you're a cousin, you're a friend, you're a mentor. There are all these different kinds of things, and myself included, to where it's like, hey, I need to make sure I'm taking care of my sleep, my nutrition, buying Rachel's cookbook so I could do all those things in a row. But kind of doing all that. And I think that's really important. And just kind of the final question I'd ask you to kind of wrap up is like, what's the one message like you'd leave with every parent or athlete that's listening who wants to find that next gear or that next level, not just in sports, but just in life with their nutrition?
I would say it comes from doing the basics really, really well. Fuel your body, prioritize protein, get enough sleep, hydrate, recover, move consistently. Like those habits probably sound really simple and sounds like everyone's just already doing them, but they're truly what set the foundation for everything else. And these basics are available to everyone, but I guarantee you, majority of people are not taking advantage of them and doing them really, really well. So you don't need a perfect routine. You don't need expensive supplements or like the newest trend that's coming out, every month. You just need consistency with those fundamentals. Start with one or two habits, be patient, and let those build. Don't just overhaul your whole life and get overwhelmed and quit. That's what's going to create confidence and resilience and long-term success in sports and in life.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important. I mean, just kind of overall messaging of this podcast, I think it's just finding little consistent wins, that the keyword being consistent, that you could do over a long period of time and actually get those going. And obviously under fueling was a big word. So make sure everyone's kind of getting enough of their proteins in. I know that was, and if you don't know what proteins are, make sure you get the high protein coming out, and you can pre-order it. But just being able to lift and skill development, all those things, but understanding that recovery is huge, but nutrition is equally as big as those other two categories. And I know, just kind of reiterating kind of your kind of points earlier talked about, it's really important, super simple. Make sure you're eating more. Eating more protein, never train on an empty tank, and kind of just applying those, and sleep and hydrate and recover and all these things. Sometimes if people aren't paying for this information, they think, oh, it's not going to work. But these are things that are free, that you could absolutely just catapult your career and change and kind of get that competitive edge over athletes. And I don't know, are there any kind of lasting words that you feel like you wanted to touch on before we finish up here?
If we have any people listening from those collegiate level environments who do have access to a dietitian, or all those superfoods at your smoothie station, like take advantage of those. Take advantage of just having those resources and learning just a little bit more. You don't have to learn anything crazy. It's not a bunch of science. Really just learn the basics of what can benefit you, that's going to help you perform at that next level.
Yeah. And from an athlete who's been out of it for about 5 years now, when it's gone, it's gone. So learn what you can learn while you can. Until next time, Athlete Country Club, appreciate you guys listening. Have a good one.
Thank you.